They shared laughter when no one was looking. They leaned on each other when life became too heavy. Yet beneath the charm, the fame, and the carefully controlled smiles, there was a silence, one that carried heartbreak, pride, misunderstanding, and regret. For decades, Elton John guarded the truth about the friendship that shaped him more than the world ever realized. A friendship with Princess Diana that began with pure spontaneity, nearly collapsed under pressure, and ended with a loss that left him changed forever. This is the story he once held close, and the night that bound them together. The year was 1981, a moment in British history that felt almost enchanted. Prince Charles was preparing to marry Diana Spencer, a young nursery school assistant who had suddenly become the world's fascination. Britain was swept up in the fairy tale. For Elton John, already a global music icon, that same year would mark the beginning of something far more personal, a friendship that would alter the course of his life. By then, Elton was already well known within certain royal circles. The Queen Mother adored his music. Princess Margaret, ever the rebellious spirit of the family, frequently invited him to intimate evenings at Kensington Palace. He played for aristocrats, dined with dukes, and even endured Prince Philip's dry humor. Philip once joked that Elton's bright yellow Aston Martin looked like it belonged in a children's cartoon rather than at Windsor. Yet despite all the privilege and glamour, Elton had never felt he truly belonged. He was the flamboyant outsider, the musician whose sequined suits and emotional transparency clashed with the stiff upper lip of the British elite. But everything changed the night of Prince Andrew's 21st birthday celebration at Windsor Castle. The ballroom glowed under grand chandeliers. Royal formality filled the room, velvet gowns, polished medals, hushed conversations. Elton had been seated at the piano, playing quietly as guests flowed like a tide across the marble floor. He later admitted he felt nervous and oddly out of place, as though everyone else glided with ease while he simply hoped no one noticed his discomfort. Then he saw her. Diana Spencer entered the ballroom, not yet a princess, not yet the most photographed woman in the world, just a young woman with a bright smile and a presence that seemed to shift the air around her. Elton noticed not her title, but her warmth. She looked over, caught him watching, and returned a smile full of sincerity rather than aristocratic politeness. Moments later, she made her way toward him. What began as a polite greeting transformed into a rapid, effortless friendship. They laughed about the painfully formal music playing in the background, joking that it felt more like a lullaby than a celebration. Their shared laughter escalated into a spontaneous Charleston mime in the middle of the ballroom, a moment so unexpected that even the Queen glanced over with amusement. Elton would later write, "That night, I felt as if I'd known her forever." Diana brought something rare to that world of etiquette and tradition, genuine warmth. She was weeks away from entering a family defined by silence, protocol, and public performance. Her every gesture would soon be examined by tabloids. She sensed the pressure closing in. With Elton, though, she felt free to laugh. And in Diana, Elton found someone grounded, empathetic, and more real than anyone he'd encountered in those circles. Their connection was instant. Two outsiders standing at very different intersections of public life, yet both carrying unseen burdens. Neither could have guessed how deeply that bond would shape the years ahead. Through the 1980s and early 1990s, Elton John and Princess Diana became closer than most people realized. Headlines occasionally captured them together at charity events, concerts, and fundraisers. Cameras recorded their smiles, their whispered jokes, the light-hearted moments that made them a favorite pairing in the public eye. But what the world didn't see was the vulnerability that lay beneath those smiles. Diana had a remarkable gift. She could make anyone feel comfortable, whether a celebrity, a patient, or a world leader. Yet she herself wrestled constantly with pressure, loneliness, and the suffocating expectations of royal life. Inside Kensington Palace, her marriage to Prince Charles deteriorated. Rumors of infidelity shadowed everything she did. She struggled with feelings of inadequacy, battled bulimia in secret, and lay awake through sleepless nights feeling trapped. Elton understood her pain more than most. Behind his glitter and fame, He grappled with addiction, insecurity, and the exhausting scrutiny of being openly himself in a judgmental time. He knew what it felt like to be adored publicly, yet feel alone privately. They recognized each other's wounds instantly. Their friendship became a place of refuge, away from flashbulbs, away from expectations. Diana would attend Elton's charity events, especially those supporting AIDS awareness. At a time when society feared the disease, she became one of the first public figures to touch AIDS patients without gloves. Elton always said that moment changed everything for the public perception of AIDS. It proved she led with compassion, not reputation. There were joyful moments, too. Diana's sense of humor was sharp and mischievous. She teased Elton about his outlandish stage outfits. He laughed at her eye rolls directed at royal snobbery. They shared a love of gossip and side jokes, and the kind of laughter that lightened the heaviest days. One evening, at a private dinner party in London, both Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone found themselves completely captivated by her. Elton recalled that the situation nearly escalated into a fight as the two actors competed for her attention. She could bring Hollywood to its knees, he later joked. Yet, even Diana's magnetism couldn't erase her struggles. Behind the glamour and charm, she felt fragile and often unloved. Elton would visit her simply to listen, offering comfort without cameras or expectations. But as fame intensified and royal politics grew more complex, pressures mounted on both sides. Their friendship remained strong, until the moment misunderstanding disrupted everything. By 1996, Diana and Elton's friendship had become a favorite subject of tabloids, though very few understood its depth. They had supported each other through heartbreak, stood together during charity efforts, and shared an unspoken trust that made their bond feel more like family. Then a single decision changed everything. Elton had been working on a coffee table book of rock photography to raise money for an AIDS foundation. The project featured a collection of bold, artistic images, some of them including semi-nude male models. Diana had graciously agreed to write the foreword, a gesture that meant the world to Elton. Her involvement symbolized courage and compassion for a cause often dismissed or stigmatized. Then, without any warning, a letter arrived from Diana's office. It explained, politely but firmly, that she could no longer participate. Elton was stunned. It wasn't just disappointment. It felt personal. He later learned that royal advisors had objected to her association with the imagery in the book. To them, it was inappropriate for a royal figure. To Elton, it felt like rejection from someone he trusted. Feeling hurt, he let her know. Diana, already under extraordinary pressure, responded with a sharply worded letter he later described as cold, blunt, and wounding. After that, silence. For months, they didn't speak. On his side, Elton struggled with pride and pain. Diana was navigating one of the hardest chapters of her life. Her divorce from Prince Charles had been finalized. She had lost her title of Her Royal Highness. The press hounded her relentlessly. Every move she made became fuel for speculation. Elton believed the palace may have pressured her, but he also wondered if she simply wanted to distance herself from others' causes as she tried to rediscover who she was. Whatever the reason, the fracture between them deepened. "We were both too proud," Elton admitted later. Neither reached out. Neither apologized, and time passed with a silence they both regretted. Yet fate had one more moment in store. On July 15, 1997, the world woke to shocking news. Gianni Versace had been murdered outside his Miami home. Versace had been a close friend to both Elton and Diana. His death shook them deeply. At the funeral in Milan, Elton sat grieving, eyes heavy. It had been months since he'd last spoken to Diana. The rift still lingered. Then she approached him. Diana reached for his hand and whispered, "I'm so sorry. It was silly, our falling out. Let's be friends again." The simplicity of the words struck him harder than any formal apology could have. She didn't speak with royal distance. She spoke as someone who cared, who wanted healing, who missed him. In true Diana fashion, she eased the tension with humor. Elton recalled that in the exact moment she offered comfort, she also muttered, God, I'd love Apollo. They laughed softly, a fragile yet genuine reconnection. They made plans to see each other again. Neither knew they were standing at the edge of their last moment together. Just 6 weeks later, everything would change. In the early hours of August 31st, 1997, Elton John was awakened by the sound of his fax machine. A message had come through. "So sorry to hear about this awful news." Confused, he turned on the television. What he saw took the breath from him. Princess Diana had been killed in a car crash in Paris after being pursued by paparazzi. She was 36 years old. Elton felt shock wash over him. Just weeks earlier, they had been reunited at Versace's funeral. Now she was gone. The Spencer family asked Elton to perform at her funeral. With Bernie Taupin, he rewrote the lyrics of Candle in the Wind, a song originally dedicated to Marilyn Monroe. The new version began with the line, "Goodbye, England's Rose." On September 6, 1997, he sat at the piano inside Westminster Abbey. Millions watched around the world. Cameras captured his trembling hands, his tense jaw, the weight of grief pressing on every note. "It felt like the whole world was watching," he later said. "But it wasn't about me. It was about her." The rewritten song became the best-selling single in history. Yet Elton never felt pride in its success. To him, it was not a triumph. It was a memorial. A reminder of a life cut short and a friendship left unfinished. Years passed, but Elton never let go of the promise he made privately to protect Diana's sons. When Prince Harry later faced intense media harassment, Elton spoke out publicly. He felt a responsibility, one rooted in love, grief, and the memory of a friend who had trusted him. He often reflected on their rift in the 90s, a wound that never fully healed. "If I could go back," he said, "I would have picked up the phone. I would have said, 'I'm sorry. Life's too short for pride.'" He also came to believe that Diana's withdrawal from the charity project wasn't truly her choice. Palace pressures likely influenced her. She was surrounded by forces that shaped her life in ways the public never saw. Their friendship was unlike any other, a royal icon and a world-famous musician connected through loneliness, laughter, and the desire to be understood. Diana showed the world her courage and compassion. Elton rediscovered purpose through her influence, becoming one of the most recognized voices in humanitarian and AIDS advocacy. Even today, when he sits at the piano and the room falls silent, he sometimes senses her presence in that quiet space between notes, the echo of her laughter, the memory of her warmth. He once said, "She proved that kindness and honesty can exist in a world built on image.